Video game journalists' worst enemies are themselves. Gamers didn't just decide to wake up one day loathing these people and pointing and laughing at them for no good reason. For years now, they have had the worst takes, and they constantly attack gamers and expect no pushback, and clearly that's not happening. And now Kotaku is making themselves look like clowns yet again because they're talking about how we could be entering a skippable boss fight utopia, just proving how little they actually care about video games. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I am all for the most amount of options for gamers possible. I do not care if you add an extra easy difficulty to a video game or if you add a feature like skippable boss fights. My problem is not that the average gamer might want to use that, it's that people who get paid to play and talk about video games are using that. I think that it's pretty ridiculous that video game journalists do not want to actually play video games, and at any chance they get, they will praise options to play less of them. And now Kotaku is getting absolutely roasted for their latest take, talking about how this might be the future of the industry and how good of a move that would be. So, of course, this is by Kotaku and John Walker. It says, though, in a gaming world increasingly built out of Souls-likes, which there's a reason there's so many Souls-likes coming out, and that's because gamers actually like them, where the concept of the boss battle becomes the central game mechanic, some of us have been left behind. I have always hated boss fights, and while I have no interest in convincing anyone else to agree with me, I have long lamented the lack of accommodation made for the many other people who are already with me, but sniff the air, something's changing. It just is another piece of evidence that points to these people not actually playing video games. There are plenty of video games now that come out that the main focus is not boss fights or a higher level difficulty. I mean, even look at something like Expedition 33. Sure, boss fights are a big part of it. You can get super OP. You can make the game really easy so that it's more of a story experience, and that's perfectly fine. But the fact that you're saying, oh, there's not enough games where you can just outright skip the boss fights and that's what makes it good is pretty ridiculous. It says, though, I recently loaded South of Midnight, interested to check out such a gorgeous looking game, and was immediately delighted by the art and the extraordinary performances in the cutscenes, but then, as Zach warned us, I was immediately underwhelmed by the repetitive combat. However, while idly fiddling through the game's settings to see what was what, I saw a toggle I absolutely was not expecting. Boss skip option. Yeah, the mainstream media was very, very happy over this. I mean, here is an Aftermath article talking about how South of Midnight has great difficulty options, and of course, it talks about how you can just magically skip boss fights and even regular fights and chase sequences. So basically, anything that could be seen as gameplay, you can just straight up skip in South of Midnight. If you don't want to play a game, that's fine. Don't play a game. But you can't go around calling yourself a video game journalist if you don't actually like video games. I don't understand why these people are so adamant on holding on to their positions within this industry when they don't actually care about it. I guess at the end of the day, it just boils down to the fact that they couldn't make it at mainstream political outlets like MSNBC, right? So they had to infiltrate another one, and they thought the games industry was going to be easy and that gamers were an easy target, but I think they've learned that that's definitely not the case. It says, though, in 2017, I wrote one of the most controversial articles of my career. Here we go about Gamergate, a piece for which I received literal death threats alongside hundreds of more insults and wishes for my demise. As someone battle-hardened by Gamergate. Oh my god, it's always the victim card. I'm a victim, poor me, woe is me. It takes quite a bit for the scale of a backlash to take me by surprise, and while I knew it would piss off some people, I didn't predict the volume. I wrote an article suggesting that boss fights should be skippable, and of course we are seeing more and more companies decide to lean in that direction. I mean, I think that when you're getting to the point where you allow people to skip boss fights, and you allow them to skip chase sequences, and you allow them to skip any sort of combat segments, you should just be making a movie. And that's fine if you just want to make a movie, but don't call it a video game when that's not actually what it is you wanted to create in the first place. There are so many games I've never seen the end of, but for YouTube, I suppose, because I just wasn't physically capable of completing the later bosses. I've never finished a Metroid Prime game, for instance, despite it being one of my all-time favorite gaming series. There are other games I've been enjoying so much, but just had to abandon because every so often there would be a difficulty spike of such enormous disproportion that eventually I'd lose all will to try. And then they talk about how this is amazing and how good it is that they're actually allowing you a way out of these tough spots. They even, of course, continue to prop up South of Midnight, saying, yet, in the month since South of Midnight's release, I have yet to witness the collapse of humanity. In fact, I've heard only very few people talking about it. Yeah, that's because it's just a mid-game. It's not an awful game, it's not an amazing game, but it's not a memorable game. And they say, I'm fairly certain this has appeared in South of Midnight as a consideration for accessibility, and that's wonderful. It's worth noting the game even lets you skip combat. Although, given how dull it is, that seems to fix another issue entirely. In the last few years, we've seen a dramatic change in how AAA games are being made, with the needs of players put front and center. And as I said at the beginning of this video, and as I will continue to say, it is perfectly fine as an average customer if you want to skip boss fights and you think that this is a good option, by all means use it. My problem is when a video game journalist is saying, oh, this is the future of the video game industry and how amazing this is, while propping up a game like South of Midnight and talking about how amazing this is, when the gameplay is so dull and so repetitive. They're not saying, well, maybe they should have fixed that game in the first place and actually made it a super awesome experience so that people wouldn't want to skip it. When your job is to play video games, I expect the reviewer I'm reading to have actually played the video games, and Kotaku is getting absolutely roasted for this now. I had responded to their post saying, you'd like that. It's got over 1,000 likes, lots of comments on both of them. I mean, just going to Kotaku's thread, there's people saying, always bully gaming journalists, clown license you. Has there ever been a more Kotaku headline? Man, you guys keep finding new ways to make even bigger asses of yourselves. I know it. People grimacing at them, another retarded Kotaku post. Holy shit, you people are pathetic. The most non-gamer thing to say for a gaming website, Kotaku with the skip gameplay button games, and it's them just absolutely spamming it. The only reason I truly believe that video game developers are really focused on pushing things like skippable boss fights and skippable combat is because there are people like this on the internet. There are people who don't actually want to play video games, but want to feel like they're part of the cool kids club. So they end up adding these different features for people who would complain otherwise so that hopefully they continue to get good reviews. We know that Death Stranding 2 is doing something similar where you can actually skip boss fights, and that was not received very positively either because, of course, the mainstream media is praising it. I think that that's pretty ridiculous. Clearly, I'm not alone either, given the fact that Kotaku's getting absolutely wrecked right now. 85 likes to 297 reposts and 449 comments. So I'll definitely be keeping my eye on this, but right now Kotaku's getting wrecked, and that means it's always a good day on the internet. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.